Lily's fingers trembled as she grasped the edge of the marble countertop in the dimly lit suite. The fear pulsing through her veins made it hard to breathe. She had just finished reading the text message on her phone. The sender was none other than Damian Blackwood, the millionaire CEO who had swept her into a world she never believed she could enter. The message was short but delivered a crushing blow. I will be with you tonight, but do not be jealous if I have an affair with another woman. Those words echoed in her mind over and over again. She was in his penthouse, alone, waiting for him. But the idea that he could be returning to her after being with someone else was eating her alive. She felt sick, betrayed, yet she could not pull herself away from him. It was as though she stood on the edge of a cliff, the wind howling at her back, warning her that one wrong step would send her plummeting into the darkness. But still, there was something about him, something that kept her waiting there with anticipation and dread blending inside her heart. The night had started out innocently enough, with Lily arriving at the penthouse at the exact time he had instructed her to come. At first, the city lights below had amazed her. She had walked through the grand hall, eyes wide, taking in the polished floors, the crystal chandeliers, and the opulent furniture. She felt out of place in her simple black dress and low heels, but she kept going, remembering how Damien had insisted she meet him here. He had sent the message while she was waiting in the living room, a single lamp casting a faint glow. Now, reading the words on the screen, her heart pounded so loudly she could hear her own pulse. He was with someone else tonight. He had warned her not to feel jealous. He had told her many times before that he was not bound to one woman, not chained by any rules. He had said she must respect his freedom if she wanted to be with him. That was the price of standing at his side. She could taste the bitterness on her tongue as she remembered his exact words. I am a millionaire CEO. I have built my empire. And in my empire, I live by my own rules. Lily felt a drop of sweat roll down her temple. Her sense of self-worth was on the line. Could she accept such a request? Could she watch him parade around with other women? Could she handle the jealousy, the heartbreak, and the constant doubt? The way he had spelled it out was chilling. He did not want drama, did not want regrets. Yet he still wanted her, somehow. He wanted her in his world, close enough to hold, but not close enough to tie him down. That knowledge cut deep, like a knife forging through her heart. Her phone buzzed again, and she nearly jumped. She was almost too afraid to check it, but her trembling hand lifted the device. There was a new text from Damien. I will be there soon. Wait for me in the living room. The weight of the situation filled the room like a dense fog. Her throat tightened. She felt exposed, as though the walls themselves were judging her. Why did she stay, knowing the heartbreak that could follow? Why did she still cling to the faint hope that somehow he might change his mind? She stood near the window, looking out at the thousands of lights in the skyline, each one seeming to mock her predicament. She inhaled slowly, trying to steady herself. In that moment, she prepared to face him, yet fear still gnawed at her stomach. This was the moment that left her shaken. The moment of waiting for a man who had it all: wealth, status, and the power to shatter her heart with a single gesture. Would he arrive with guilt in his eyes or with a smug grin on his face? Would he see her despair and pretend not to notice? Lily did not know. All she knew was that in a few minutes, the door would open, and Damian Blackwood, the millionaire CEO who had captivated her soul, would walk in, carrying with him the evidence of a night spent in another woman's arms. That was the last thought that ran through her mind as she waited. The city lights flickered, and the soft hum of the air conditioner was the only noise in that giant penthouse. She almost wished the storm outside the windows would lash out against the glass, drowning her fear in thunder and lightning. But the night was calm. It left her alone with her own thoughts, and those thoughts were anything but calm. She heard the elevator ding. Her heart stuttered. He was here. When the front door slid open with a soft click, Lily saw Damien step in. He wore a tailored charcoal suit that fit his frame perfectly. His dark hair was brushed back in a smooth style, and his expression was confident as always. But there was a trace of something in his eyes, maybe surprise. Perhaps he hadn't expected her to look this shaken. He walked toward her with measured steps, shutting the door behind him. He placed his smartphone on the countertop, loosened his tie, and ran his hand through his hair. The tension was so thick that Lily felt it nearly push her back. She forced herself to speak to keep her voice from quivering. You're late. He smirked, a half smile that could hold multiple meanings. You're still here. She did not respond. The words from his text message were too raw. She knew she should address them, but the fear of confrontation was strong. She was afraid of hearing the truth from his mouth, that he had indeed been with someone else only minutes ago. Damien moved to the window, looking out at the midnight skyline for a moment. He then turned, his gaze landing on her. There was something magnetic about him. It was the same magnetic pull that had caught her attention the first night they met at a charity function 6 months ago. She had been there as an assistant to a small nonprofit group that specialized in helping homeless youth. She remembered how unimpressed she had been by the crowd at first. They were wealthy individuals who wrote checks out of courtesy, but seldom cared to see where their money went. Lily felt like an outsider among them. She only attended because her boss told her it would be good exposure. Then Damien appeared on stage to give his speech. He was introduced as the CEO of a large tech company that had donated a staggering amount of money to the organization. His speech was short and direct, but not unkind. He seemed aware of his influence and used it with care, at least at that time. Lily recalled that he had glanced her way once while stepping down from the stage. Her cheeks grew warm even now, recalling the memory. Later that night, she found herself standing by the side of the venue, holding a glass of water, feeling small but relieved that her presence at the event was almost over. Then he approached. Damien did not waste time with small talk. He looked her in the eye and told her he wanted to learn more about the nonprofit. She had been thrown off guard by his intense stare, but she had done her best to explain how the program worked, how the funds would help. She told him stories about the young people they had helped find jobs and safe housing. He listened without interrupting. By the end of that conversation, he asked if she would meet him for coffee to talk more. Her heart had pounded at the direct request, and although she felt out of place in his world, she was drawn in by his interest and his willingness to listen. She had agreed, not sure if it was professional or personal. That was how everything had started. Now, months later, she was in his penthouse, feeling the sting of betrayal from a man she was never sure she could trust. Looking at him brought back all those memories he used to ask about her day, how he once surprised her at the youth shelter to volunteer for a few hours. But something changed along the way. His business soared to new heights, and soon there were news articles about him at lavish parties, always with a different woman on his arm. Lily tried to ignore the gossip, but the rumors began to seem real when he started sending her cryptic texts and vanishing for days. Through it all, there was some part of her that hoped he felt something sincere for her. Some nights, he would confess how lonely he was at the top, how much he valued her presence because she was the only one who did not treat him like a trophy. He claimed she gave him a sense of home, something he had lost in his quest for success, but the text message he sent tonight told a different story. How could he say he wanted her presence, yet also expect her to accept his affairs? Damien finally broke the silence. "You seem uneasy," he stated. "Did something happen?" Lily's eyes flashed. "You know why I'm uneasy. I got your message. You said you might have an affair. You said I shouldn't be jealous. Do you really think that's easy for me to accept?" He crossed his arms, letting out a low exhale. "I told you from the beginning that my lifestyle is my own. I don't want to hide anything from you. If I see someone else, I don't want drama about it. But that doesn't mean I don't care about you. It's simply how I live." She felt a knot form in her chest. "That hurts," she whispered, blinking back tears. "It feels like you're telling me I'm disposable." "You're not disposable," he replied, his voice calm. "But I can't promise exclusivity. I never did." She swallowed hard, fighting the tears that threatened to spill. She remembered how her friends had warned her when she started seeing him. They told her not to get attached, not to believe he would settle down. She had brushed them off, convinced that there was something different about him. Now, she wondered if she had been foolish to hold on to that hope. He stepped closer, his tone softer but still certain. "Look, you can stay tonight. I want you here. But if you can't handle the way I am, I understand if you want to leave." It was a choice she had been dreading. Was this love or was this desperation? She forced herself to speak honestly. "I don't want to leave right now." Even as she said it, she felt the sting of self-betrayal. She wanted to see this through no matter how foolish it might be. He nodded, as though her answer was a relief. "All right, let's sit down, have a drink, and get some rest. I'm tired, and I have an early meeting tomorrow." Despite the swirling storm in her chest, she followed him. This was the path she had chosen, at least for tonight. The tension did not vanish, but she tried to keep her composure. Maybe she would find the courage to walk away tomorrow, or the next day. Yet in the back of her mind, she wondered if she ever would. The next morning, Lily woke up to find the penthouse bathed in soft light. It was early, but she could sense that Damien had already gone. She glanced at the clock on the bedside table. It read 6:15 a.m. Her eyes then moved to the pillow beside her, untouched and still smooth. He had not even slept in the bed with her last night. She recalled how the evening ended. Damien offered her a glass of wine, which she sipped in silence. Tension hung in the air, and neither of them addressed the subject again. When her eyes grew heavy, he walked her to the bedroom and left her there to rest. He went to his study, claiming he had work to do. That was the last she saw of him before she drifted off. Now, seeing the empty bed, she felt a pang of loneliness. She got dressed in the same clothes she wore the night before, feeling shame wash over her. She needed to get out of here. She had to find clarity. She slipped out of the bedroom, making her way to the living room. She found a note on the counter. "I have an early meeting. There's breakfast in the fridge. You can let yourself out whenever you want, Damien." The note was brief, almost cold. She felt her heart sink, realizing that perhaps he never intended to spend the morning with her. The idea that he might have gone directly to another woman tugged painfully at her chest, but she tried to set the thought aside. She could not live in a constant state of jealousy. Still, she could not pretend it didn't bother her. She left his penthouse quickly, riding the private elevator down to the building's lobby. The doorman wished her a good day, a slightly knowing look in his eyes, and she forced a polite smile before stepping out onto the busy street. Taxis honked, and the city's morning rush was well underway. She merged with the crowds, her mind spinning. As she walked to the subway station, memories of her old life crowded her thoughts. She remembered when she didn't know Damien, when her days were simpler but her dreams were not as grand. She had been content with small joys, reading a good book, volunteering at the shelter, grabbing cheap coffee with friends. Now, she was entangled in a relationship or something like it with a man whose behavior made her question her own worth. Upon reaching her small apartment, she collapsed onto her worn couch. The contrast between her modest living space and Damien's extravagant penthouse almost made her laugh. But she did not feel like laughing. She felt stuck. She wanted more out of life, more out of a relationship, but Damien kept everything on his terms. She cursed herself for not having the strength to leave. Why did she cling to him? She buried her face in a pillow and let out a shaky sigh. Then she remembered she had to go to work. She still worked part-time for the nonprofit, though the hours had been cut back. She needed the income, meager though it was. She forced herself to stand, change into fresh clothes, and tried to push the swirling thoughts aside. Work offered a temporary distraction. She spent the morning drafting a report on new grants and scheduling volunteer hours. She answered emails from donors. Yet between tasks, her mind drifted to Damien. She thought about the text messages he might be sending to other women. She imagined him in some luxurious meeting room, followed by an entourage that catered to his every whim. She hated how the suspicion and insecurity occupied her mind. At lunchtime, she wandered into the break room, where her friend and co-worker, Carmen, was warming up soup. Carmen took one look at Lily's face and frowned. "You look exhausted," Carmen said, concern in her eyes. "Are you okay?" Lily shook her head. I don't think I'm okay." She hesitated, but she was tired of holding it all in. "It's Damien. Things are complicated." Carmen nodded, turning off the microwave. "You want to talk about it?" Lily sighed. "He told me, flat out, that he might have affairs, and he expects me not to be jealous. I know I sound foolish, but I still can't walk away. Part of me feels stuck." Carmen's face reflected disbelief. "He told you that directly?" Lily nodded. "Last night, in a text. Then he came back late, didn't even sleep with me, and left before dawn." Carmen let out a slow breath. "That doesn't sound like a healthy relationship, Lily. Have you thought about what you really want?" That question echoed in Lily's mind. She knew she wanted to be loved, respected, and not treated as an afterthought. But she also recognized that Damien came with a lifestyle she did not know how to handle. Part of her was fascinated by his power, his vision, and the good she had once seen in him. Yet she also wondered if that side of him still existed, or if it had been swallowed by his own pride. "I don't know," Lily confessed. "I'm torn. He can be so caring sometimes, but then he shows a total disregard for my feelings. I'm scared to leave him, and I'm scared to stay." Carmen gave her a hug. "You have to figure out what's best for you. You can't let him destroy your confidence. You deserve more." Lily felt tears burning behind her eyes. "I appreciate you saying that." They parted, and Lily tried to hold herself together for the rest of the workday. She buried herself in tasks and found some solace in helping people who were less fortunate than she was. Somehow, it reminded her that she had a purpose beyond her confusing relationship. At day's end, she felt a surge of mixed emotion. She wanted to talk to Damien, to confront him again, but was afraid of another cold response. Part of her wanted to see him and force him to acknowledge her pain. Another part of her wanted to vanish and hope he would chase after her. That was a fantasy, though. Damien was not the type to chase. She checked her phone a few times, but there were no new messages from him. She told herself she would not reach out first, let him contact her if he cared at all. Days passed with only brief communication. Damien sent short texts about random things, an update on a business deal, a comment on a new restaurant he tried, or a short, "Hope you're well." Lily answered politely, but she did not suggest meeting again. She decided she would wait to see if he genuinely wanted to spend time with her or if he was just making small talk. She had begun to wonder if maybe this was the start of their end, a gradual drifting apart that would finally free her from the painful situation. Then, one evening, as she was finishing her dinner alone in her apartment, she got a call. She recognized his number immediately. Her heart lurched, and she debated letting it go to voicemail. But she answered, "Hello?" "Lily," came his deep voice. "I've been thinking about you." She closed her eyes, trying to remain calm. "Hi, Damien." He paused. "I want to see you. I'm attending a business retreat this weekend at a private resort. I'd like you to join me. It's a beautiful place by the coast, and you could use some time away from the city, right?" His invitation took her by surprise. "A business retreat? Are you sure you want me there?" "Yes," he replied. "I want you there. You can relax by the beach. We'll have time to talk. Also, I'd like to introduce you to some people. It might be good for the nonprofit, too. I'm meeting some potential partners who are interested in social causes." His tone was warmer than it had been in weeks. Lily felt her resolve weaken. She told herself that maybe this was a step forward, a chance to clarify everything. "All right, when do we leave?" "My driver will pick you up Friday morning. Pack for 3 days. Don't worry about expenses. I'll take care of everything." His certainty made her feel both excited and uneasy. But she agreed, hoping maybe this trip would give her the clarity she had been longing for. By Friday morning, Lily stood on the sidewalk in front of her apartment building. A sleek black car pulled up, and a chauffeur stepped out, greeting her politely. She felt a surge of nerves as she climbed into the back seat. Damien was not inside. It was just the driver. He handed her a folder with details about the resort, including pictures of white sand beaches, a luxurious spa, and fine dining. The ride took a few hours, winding along a coastal highway until they reached a gated resort. Lush palm trees and manicured gardens bordered the entryway. Once inside, Lily marveled at the stunning architecture-modern lines and glass walls that offered panoramic views of the sparkling ocean. It felt surreal to be invited to such an exclusive place. She was led to a private suite with a balcony overlooking the shore. The air smelled of salt and coconut. She quickly learned from the staff that Damien had already arrived but was in a meeting. He had arranged for her to have some leisure time. So Lily did her best to explore the resort. She wandered through the gardens, pausing at a koi pond. She saw couples laughing by the pool, employees hurrying to set up conference rooms, and well-dressed men and women carrying laptops and thick files. She felt like an outsider in a glamorous world, yet she could not deny the wonder of it all. That evening, she received a message from Damien asking her to meet him for dinner at one of the resort's restaurants. Lily changed into a summer dress, her hair loose around her shoulders, and walked to the restaurant with fluttering nerves. She feared seeing him in a public setting with people who might know about his reputation. She didn't want to overhear whispers that she was just another fling. Upon arriving, she found Damien seated at an ocean view table. He stood as soon as he saw her, pulling out her chair. His attentive gesture caught her off guard. "You look beautiful," he said, giving her a quick, polite kiss on the cheek. She gave a small smile. "Thank you." They sat down, and the waiter came to take their orders. Damien suggested the special seafood dish, which Lily agreed to. Once the waiter left, she looked at Damien and felt a swirl of questions rise in her mind. She wanted to ask if he was still seeing other women. She wondered if she should mention how hurt she had been by his message. But she bit her tongue, trying to gauge the mood. "I'm glad you came," Damien said. "I know things have been strange between us." She nodded, heart pounding. "Yes, they have." He looked out at the darkening horizon for a moment. "I've been thinking a lot about my life, about the path I've taken. I worked hard to build my company. I made it to the top, but I realized how often I shut people out. I told myself it was better to live without attachments, that it kept me free and strong. I still feel that way, to some extent. But I also see how lonely it can be." Lily's eyes softened. It was rare for him to open up. Why are you telling me this now? He reached for her hand across the table. She let him take it, unsure what to expect. Because I don't want to lose you, he said. I understand if you can't accept my choices, but I also want you to know that you mean more to me than just a casual fling. Her heart leaped with hope. Then why did you say? He squeezed her hand gently. I said those things because I was afraid of falling into the trap of a committed relationship. I told you not to be jealous because I wanted an escape from any drama. But it occurred to me that my refusal to let you in might drive you away. And I don't want that. She was silent, letting his words sink in. It felt too good to be true. She wasn't sure if he was sincere or just saying what she wanted to hear. Damien, I don't want to force you into something, but I also can't live wondering if you're out with someone else every night. I can't just shut off my feelings. He nodded, appearing thoughtful. I'm trying to figure out if I can find a balance. Maybe I've been too rigid about my so-called freedom. I don't want you to accept something that hurts you. But I also need to be sure you understand that my life is busy, and I have many people around me. Some of them are women who might chase me for money or status. I can't stop them from trying, but I can choose how I respond. This was more than Lily had expected him to say. A flicker of hope warmed her. So what now? Damien's eyes rested on her. Let's take this weekend to figure things out. Spend time with me. Watch how I handle my work. See what my world is like. Then decide if we can find a place for each other that doesn't involve heartbreak. She inhaled, feeling a slight weight lift from her chest. All right, she agreed. Let's try. Their food arrived, and they spent the rest of the meal talking about lighter topics, upcoming projects, her plans for the nonprofit, and some funny stories from the early days of his career. He seemed genuinely relaxed, not putting on airs. She allowed herself a moment to hope that maybe this could lead to a better understanding between them. But in the back of her mind, a warning remained. He had not outright promised to stop seeing other women. He had only hinted that he might reconsider how he lived. Lily told herself to remain cautious, but she couldn't deny the spark of optimism growing in her heart. The next morning, Damien invited Lily to join him for a stroll along the beach. The sun was still rising, casting a golden glow on the waves. They walked side by side, their feet sinking into the soft sand, the ocean breeze playing with Lily's hair. Damien talked about the first time he realized he wanted to be an entrepreneur, how he had no money but plenty of ideas, how he slept in his office for months. Lily listened, fascinated by this glimpse into his past. Then, Damien had a series of meetings. He told Lily she was welcome to join or to explore the resort. She decided to sit in on a few of them to see him in action. She watched as Damien met with several executives from different companies. They discussed partnerships, technology solutions, and philanthropic initiatives. When the topic of charity came up, he brought up Lily's nonprofit, praising her dedication. She couldn't help but feel flattered. The last meeting of the day was more formal, held in a large conference hall. Lily took a seat toward the back as Damien spoke to a panel of business leaders. He explained a new plan that involved investing in education programs and youth initiatives. The more she listened, the more she realized that he wasn't just a shallow playboy. He had a genuine passion for using his wealth to shape the world. She felt her affection for him deepen, but also her fear. Could a man with such ambition truly settle down? After the meeting, he introduced her to some of his colleagues. She tried not to feel awkward as they eyed her curiously. Some recognized her name from the times Damien had mentioned her. Most were polite, but she sensed a silent question behind their smiles. Is she just another passing fancy in Damien Blackwood's life? That evening, Damien told her there was a private networking event on the terrace. He invited her to come, but warned her it could be overwhelming. Lily decided to go, thinking it would be another chance to see him in his element. The terrace was decorated with twinkling lights. Tables of hors d'oeuvres and fancy drinks lined the sides. People dressed in designer outfits mingled, exchanging business cards and half smiles. Damien was immediately surrounded by those hoping to gain his favor. Lily watched as he navigated conversations with ease. He introduced her as a close friend who worked for a nonprofit he admired. Some of the older, wealthy men nodded politely at her. A few of the women eyed her with concealed envy. She felt self-conscious, but Damien's presence gave her some confidence. As the night wore on, Lily found herself alone by one of the tall cocktail tables, sipping sparkling water. Damien was across the terrace, talking to a woman with striking red hair and a dress that clung to her figure. They were laughing together. The woman leaned in close, placed her hand on Damien's arm. Lily felt a painful twist in her stomach. This was the test, she thought. She wondered if he would push the woman away or allow her to get even closer. She tried to look away, but she couldn't. She watched as the woman whispered something in Damien's ear. Damien looked surprised, then gave a polite shake of his head. She seemed to persist. Finally, Damien glanced around and spotted Lily. He gently removed the woman's hand from his arm and stepped back. Lily inhaled sharply. He walked away from the woman and headed straight to Lily. She felt relief wash over her, but she tried to keep her expression neutral. "You okay?" he asked, setting down his drink. She nodded, though her voice trembled a bit. "Yes." He smiled softly. "That was the head of an investment group from Europe. She was, well, quite forward." "I saw," Lily managed to say. Damien placed his hand on hers. "I told her I'm here with someone important to me." Lily felt a wave of gratitude, though a part of her was still uncertain. "Thank you," she whispered. He leaned in closer, lowering his voice. "I'm trying, Lily." Her heart fluttered. She knew it was not a promise of exclusivity, but it felt like a step. They locked eyes, and for a moment the bustle of the terrace faded away. She squeezed his hand, hoping that maybe this was the start of a new chapter. The next day, the retreat was winding down. Damien had one final meeting scheduled after lunch. Lily decided to wait for him by the pool. She settled into a lounge chair, reading a magazine and enjoying the sun. She had just flipped a page when she heard a voice. "So, you're the new interest." Lily looked up. The woman with the striking red hair from the night before stood before her, wearing a designer swimsuit and a silk wrap. Her green eyes flicked over Lily with barely concealed disdain. Lily tensed. "Hello?" The woman introduced herself as Raquel, the CEO of a European investment firm. Her smile was tight. "You know, Damien and I go way back. We've had many, shall we say, dinners. He's quite a catch, isn't he?" Lily's heart thumped. She tried to remain calm. "Yes, he is." Raquel took a seat on the lounge chair next to Lily's, crossing her legs. "I've seen him with many women before. He has his fun, then moves on. I just hope you're not setting yourself up for heartbreak." Something twisted inside Lily. She didn't appreciate the woman's tone, but her words cut close to Lily's own fears. "I appreciate your concern," she said evenly, "but Damien and I understand each other." Raquel laughed, a cold sound. "Oh, do you? You're not jealous of his habits? I'm guessing he's told you how he lives, no strings attached. If you think you can change him, you're in for a disappointment." Lily's cheeks burned. She wanted to retort, but she also felt that Raquel was voicing exactly what Lily had been worrying about all this time. She closed her magazine, stood up. "I need to go." Raquel smirked. "Of course. Run along. Just don't say I didn't warn you when he finds someone new." Anger flared in Lily's chest, but she held it back. She walked away, head held high, though inside she felt tears threatening to spill. She hurried into the hotel lobby, looking for a quiet corner. She found a small sitting area near an indoor fountain. There, she sank into a plush chair and pressed her hands to her eyes, trying to regain composure. Is she right? Lily thought. Am I being naive? Before she could wallow too long, Damien appeared, stepping off the elevator with a group of other executives. He spotted Lily immediately. Concern flashed across his face, and he excused himself from the group to approach her. "What happened?" he asked gently, noticing her distressed expression. She looked around, not wanting to break down in front of other guests. "Can we talk somewhere private?" He nodded, guiding her down a hallway to a small sitting room with a closed door. They stepped inside, and he locked it behind them. "What's wrong?" he asked again, his voice calm but worried. She exhaled. "I just spoke to Raquel. She told me about your past together and pretty much stated that I'm wasting my time, that you'll move on eventually." Damien's jaw tightened. Raquel is someone I've done business with for a long time. She tries to mix business with personal affairs. Yes, we've gone to dinner a few times, and she wanted more, but I never committed to her. Lily's shoulders sagged. "That's exactly what scares me. You never commit. I know it's your lifestyle, but it's so hard for me." He reached out, gently brushing her hair back. "I'm sorry. I can't control what she says. She's always been pushy." Lily felt tears prick her eyes. "Damien, I'm afraid I'm not strong enough for this. I don't want to live in doubt. I want to be with someone who only wants me. I want someone who doesn't make me compete with other women." He pulled her into a tender hug. She let him, her tears soaking into his shirt. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I know I've put you in a difficult position. I never wanted you to feel insecure. I like my freedom, But I see now how it hurts you. She sniffled. I can't keep going like this. He pressed his cheek to the top of her head. Let's leave this place. We can head back to the city tonight, talk in private. This retreat has served its purpose. I've done my meetings. I don't need to stay for more socializing. She nodded, feeling a wave of relief. She wanted to get away from Raquel, from the prying eyes, from the whispered questions about whether or not Lily was just another fling. Yes, let's go. They left the resort that afternoon. The drive back to the city was quiet, both of them lost in thought. Damien held Lily's hand for part of the journey, a silent gesture of comfort. Once they reached his penthouse, he asked if she would stay the night so they could finally have an honest talk. Lily agreed. In the late evening, they sat on his balcony, looking out over the glittering skyline. He poured them both a glass of wine, but they didn't drink much of it. The real matter at hand was too heavy for casual sipping. Damien broke the silence. Lily, I've never let anyone get close enough to ask me to change. I liked having multiple options, never being tied down. But I realize I can't keep someone like you in my life if I stay the same. I care about you too much. I don't want to hurt you. She searched his eyes. Does that mean you're willing to be exclusive with me? He set his glass down. I want to try. I'm not going to live this as new to me. I don't know if I'll slip up, but I want to give it a real chance. I want to see if we can have something lasting. A mixture of relief and caution washed over Lily. You're sure? He nodded. Yes, but I understand if you're still hesitant. I know I've given you reasons not to trust me completely. She exhaled, feeling tears threaten again, but this time they were tears of tentative relief. All I've ever wanted was a chance to see where this could go without other women in the picture. Damien reached for her hand. I'm ready to try that. I can't promise perfection, but I promise honesty. If I struggle, I'll talk to you about it. If that's acceptable to you, then let's see where this goes. She nodded. That's all I can ask for. They leaned into each other, sharing a soft kiss under the starlit sky. It was a small moment of victory, a step toward something deeper. Lily felt her heart lighten, hoping that perhaps this time it would be real. Over the next few weeks, Lily saw changes in Damien's behavior. He stopped making cryptic remarks about other women. He was more attentive, taking the time to text her thoughtful messages during the day. He invited her to events, not to show her off, but because he wanted her company. She started to open up to him more too. She told him stories of her childhood, how she struggled with self-esteem, how she found her calling in social work. He listened, offering support instead of judgment. It felt like they were building something genuine. One evening, Damien took her to a dinner with two of his close friends, also high-powered business types, but more down-to-earth than some of the people Lily had encountered before. During the meal, Damien held Lily's hand under the table and introduced her warmly. They discussed travel plans, future charity projects, and even joked about Damien's old habits. Lily noted how he laughed about his past, but also looked at her with reassurance, as if silently saying, I'm not that man anymore. Still, Lily's insecurities did not vanish overnight. She sometimes got anxious when Damien had to work late or attend meetings without her. She worried that he might return to old patterns. But each time he would call or text, letting her know he was thinking of her. Slowly, her fears began to ease. One day, she brought him to visit the youth shelter where she volunteered. He met some of the teenagers there, listened to their stories, and offered them words of encouragement. Lily saw a warmth in his eyes as he spoke to them, and her heart swelled with gratitude. This was the Damien she had always believed in, the one who cared about more than just money and success. The next few months passed with surprising harmony. Their bond deepened. On their weekend getaways, they laughed, explored art galleries, and talked about the future. Damien admitted he sometimes missed the thrill of being unattached, but he also stated that he didn't want to lose what they had built together. Lily treasured his honesty, and they found ways to keep excitement in their relationship: surprise outings, late-night walks, and heartfelt conversations. Spring was in full bloom when Damien invited Lily to a high-profile charity gala. It was held at a grand hotel with attendees from politics, business, and entertainment. Lily felt more confident stepping into the venue this time. She wore a simple, elegant gown. Damien stood by her side, looking proud to have her there. The event was filled with speeches and auctions. Damien had donated a large sum to a new program for children in foster care. Lily admired him from a distance as he chatted with the crowd, making sure people understood the cause. She could see the genuine passion in his voice and gestures. But halfway through the night, Raquel appeared again, wearing a dazzling black dress and a smirk. She sauntered over to Damien, and Lily's heart did a nervous flip. She tried not to stare, but she stayed close enough to observe. She saw Raquel place a hand lightly on Damien's shoulder, leaning in to whisper something. Lily braced herself. She remembered the last encounter at the resort. Would Damien fall back into old habits? She watched him carefully, searching for signs of flirtation or weakness. Raquel was smiling slyly, as if expecting to charm him. But Damien's reaction was calm. He gave Raquel a polite nod, stepped back, and looked around until his gaze landed on Lily. He gestured for Lily to come over. Her heart pounded as she approached, but she forced a composed smile. "Raquel," Damien said with a measured tone, "you remember Lily?" Raquel's smile thinned. "Yes, of course. Lovely to see you." Her eyes flicked over Lily as if evaluating her. "Damien was just telling me about his future investments," Raquel purred. "He knows I have resources in Europe." Damien nodded. "Yes, and I appreciate your interest, but I'm happy where I am right now, both in business and otherwise." Raquel's eyes narrowed slightly. "I'm sure you are." Damien placed an arm around Lily's waist. "Lily is a big part of why my future looks bright. We're working on a few charity projects together." Raquel's expression tightened. She forced a thin smile. "That's wonderful. Well, I won't keep you." She turned and walked away. Damien glanced at Lily, concern in his eyes. "You all right?" Lily exhaled a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. "Yes, I'm all right. Thank you for including me." He leaned in, giving her a soft kiss on the temple. "I told you I'm serious about us." Relief and joy spread through Lily's chest. In that moment, she felt certain that Damien was truly trying to close the door on his old ways. Perhaps this was the final test. She gave him a bright smile. "I believe you." Later that night, after the gala ended, they rode home in Damien's car. The city lights blurred by, and Lily rested her head on his shoulder. She thought about the journey they had taken from that first night he told her not to be jealous if he had an affair, to this moment of quiet closeness. They had come so far. When they arrived at his penthouse, Damien asked her to wait in the living room for a moment. Curious, she agreed. He disappeared into his study, returning after a few minutes with a small box in his hand. Lily's heart raced. He stood before her, looking uncharacteristically nervous. "Lily," he began, "I never thought I'd reach a point in life where I wanted to share it with someone. But I do now. I want you by my side, not just as a companion, but as someone I cherish and respect. This box, it's not an engagement ring, not yet, because we still have a lot of growing to do. But inside, there's a key to this penthouse." Lily's eyes widened. "A key?" Damien nodded, taking her hand. "Yes, I want you to consider this place as much yours as mine. We can figure out what that means for us day to day, but I want you to know you have a home with me if you want it." Tears welled up in Lily's eyes, her joy overflowing. She opened the box and saw a simple silver key resting on a velvet cushion. It was a symbolic gesture, one that spoke volumes. She threw her arms around him, hugging him tight. "Thank you," she whispered, feeling tears slip down her cheeks. "I want that too. I want to be here with you." He held her close, pressing a kiss to her forehead. "Thank you for giving me a chance to become the man you deserve." She smiled through her tears, feeling a powerful surge of hope. "I love you, Damien." He gave her a tender look. "I love you too, Lily." In that moment, the past pains and fears washed away like waves receding from the shore. Their journey had been rough and uncertain, but they had found a way to move forward. He was no longer the man who told her he might have an affair and asked her not to be jealous. He was the man who wanted to try for something deeper, something real. They stood by the large window, the city lights twinkling below them. The future looked bright and full of promise. Lily clutched the key in her hand, reflecting on how far they had come. Their story did not end with them sealed in perfect bliss there. Would be challenges ahead, days of doubt and moments of conflict. But they had both chosen each other, and that was enough to fill her heart with warmth and hope. It was more than enough.